Hola, bom dia, todos. Carl Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal live stream, YouTube channel, and of course the podcast. It's Virtual Village Wednesday, where we talk about all things to do with community and social media. The big question I have for you today, among others, and you know how messy it can get here, is really what social networks did you use or do you use when you were coming to Portugal, for example, which were the most helpful? And now you're here, which ones are the most useful to you? Forums, websites, social media, particularly on the social media side, because I mean, to me, that's what the web is now. It's a social matter, although my guest today might dispute that fact, that it's in many ways a little bit antisocial whilst pretending to be social. And we've actually forgotten how to be social as human beings. And maybe the internet will remind us about how to do all of that in due course in this funny time we find ourselves in terms of how Facebook's changed. I remember when Facebook was good. I don't know if you're that old, but we are in an interesting state of evolution, obviously, in the world, it would seem. That's the one elephant in the room today, about the changing state of the world. But how social media is a kind of reflection of that, as the microcosm of that macrocosm, if I can chuck in words like that at this time of the day. So let us not bother with the weather. I see Ferry's in already. Ferry really determined the flow of the show yesterday, and I urge you to do the same. He has a comment, rather a long comment, which is going to hide my face for a moment, which I feel compelled to read. How annoying it can be to sell your house. Just think of all the money, Ferry. You have to make sure everything is clean all day. You even postpone a visit to the toilet to keep the air fresh and clean. Too much information. We had a very busy day yesterday. Potential buyers would love to have a view around 4 p.m. Then a friend, Pedro, called me from Lisbon if I could check his holiday home because friends of his would come late around 11 p.m. in the evening to stay in his holiday home for a week. So I also had to clean that house and had to switch up. And it stops there. A cliffhanger of a message, but a little insight into Ferry's life, of the pitfalls of how his life has been disturbed in his efforts to sell his house there. The one, the Casa de Dia that we featured a couple of days ago, actually, really lovely place in Castanheira de Pera. I feel your pain, Ferry. Your shoulder to cry on here on the Good Morning Portugal live stream. So let's have a quick look at a couple of news items that I think are up our street when it comes to being happy homesteaders, to be returning to nature. That's our direction of travel. I think that's our sort of prognosis here on the Good Morning Portugal show, to really, whilst the world is turning to the proverbial, arguably, perhaps some of us may turn more towards nature and less reaching for the old normal, which arguably got us into trouble in the first place. Look at this, though. What do you make of this? EDP fast forwards date for coal-fired plant closures. EDP, this is an article from yesterday's Portugal Resident. Thank you to them, our unofficial partners, unofficial because they don't know that they're our partners, but great source of information for us. And maybe you too. That was a question today, wasn't it? What social media do you use? What websites do you use? What forums do you use? This may be one of them, the Portugal Resident. I have a particular fondness for this. They say EDP has decided to close down its coal-fired power plants on the Iberian Peninsula ahead of time. That is by January 2021. The plan involving the Sines plant in Portugal and others in Spain will cost the company an extra 100 million euros. Quite a lot of that is from my own electricity bill, I have to say, and that's before tax, say reports. But it has been made bearing in mind the continued deterioration of market conditions for these installations during the first period of 2020. That sounds like a particularly fine piece of corporate gobbledygook. I don't know what is really meant and why they're doing it. Of course, it will be business driven, won't it? But you might hope as well that there's a little bit of environmental concern in that as well. The idea for the Sines plant has always been for it to switch to the production of green hydrogen with the possibility of maritime exportation. Again, what does that actually mean? Green hydrogen, is that some sort of greenwashing of a dubious technology, or are we all fine with that? It'd be nice to know a little bit more if we have any expert. I imagine Mike Brodie knows a thing or two, our guest today. He may know a little bit about green hydrogen. He knows a remarkable lot about a lot of things, just to put him on the spot a little bit. One other thing before we go to Michael this morning and we talk about social media more generally. I saw this. I haven't read it myself yet, but I just wanted to mention it to you. This has the sweet title of Portugal to woo Swiss property investors in September. And I don't know what that would look like. What if you had the job of wooing Swiss property investors? What would you do to make them feel all kind of warm and fuzzy inside, so much so that they would want to reach into their wallets and invest in the country? In a bid to kickstart the recovery of Portugal's economy, the Portuguese and Swiss Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Services, the brilliantly acronymed CCISSP, will host its first property investment and tourism fair in Geneva on September the 18th and 19th. Organisers hope the event can spark, and this is a quote, the revival of these sectors in the Portuguese economy by promoting them in a market of excellence with a strong economic power. That means Swiss people are rich. We want them here, doesn't it? If we translate that. As the Chamber points out, the Swiss remain interested in investing in Portugal despite the current global situation. They haven't given up on Portugal. Much on the contrary, the organisers say, adding that a group of Swiss investors were interested in investing, I think, 50 million euros in the country. Those who are interested in investing 50 million are due to visit in July, which is now. So look sensible and productive, everybody. There may well be Swiss people wanting to invest 50 million euros among us as we speak. As a Chamber of Commerce and as organisers, we feel we have an added responsibility in this crisis and during these critical times across the world. Thus, we want to provide a fruitful contribution to the recovery of the economy, the Chamber says. Very interesting, I think. And I was with someone on Sunday, a Portuguese chap who I met through the show. We met up. He came back to my place to have some dinner. Fascinating conversation. Always really good to meet people, real Portuguese people, and get an insight into what's really going on in the country and what they think about us expats and so on. And he said that Portugal could be a lot more like Switzerland in terms of how it runs itself. So there's an interesting line of discussion, inquiry. Can we learn from Switzerland in terms of democracy, politics, and so on? Because the infrastructures are here in Portugal, aren't they? Of the small, the village, parish level, the town level, the city, and the district. It just might be a way of powering up local and community-led democracy and power and influence and politics. Any road up. Let's see who else is here this morning before we go to Michael. Good morning, Carl. Are you still in Foz do Aurélio, Claire and Steve? Hope you're enjoying it there. Bit of a sea mist this morning, possibly. That's what can happen before it brightens up. We've already got 25 degrees in and out of the studio. A little bit breezy. Not doing the weather today. All I have to say about the weather really is it's the same as yesterday, and it'll probably be the same tomorrow. We're in that time of the year. Morning, beautiful people from Owen. Sunny and fresh in Villa de Rey. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Excellent. Thank you, Owen. Morning. I'm off to the airport to pick up Wayne and Nettie today. Back again tomorrow to pick up my husband. Well, Veronica's taxi service to and from the airport. I don't know if you're open to extra business, Veronica, but welcome. Please extend my warmest and most loving wishes and regards to Wayne and Nettie, who are arriving after a long wait, gestation, you might say, of wanting to be in Portugal. Great to have those guys here. They've run the gauntlet, it would seem. It'd be interesting to see what the process has been of flying from whence they came and how it was to arrive in the airport, and whether they paid, is it 100 euros to be tested, or you do quarantine. It's either or at the moment, I believe. But of course, it might have changed because these things changing on a daily basis. Weather report from Al Fayazara, simply sizzle, sizzle. Sounds a little bit too much like Jimmy Savile for my liking, that. But least said about that, the better. Let's welcome Michael Brody to the screen. Hi,
hello, Portugal. Hello, Carl.
How are you today? Olá, bom dia, tudo bem?
Yeah, tudo bem. Feeling a little sizzle.
Are you? Right, okay.
Still not climatized, even here in Aveiro, which is one of the coolest spots, I think, in Portugal.
You do enjoy a stiff sea breeze, I believe, there.
That's getting very personal, Carl.
Well, we're going to keep it personal here.
Excellent.
I do want to know what you're a social media guy. You are creating a social platform, a social network. We want to know from people which are the social networks they found useful when they were researching, and name them by all means. I mean, be nice, but spread the good news about the ones that are helpful and useful, and why, which particular bits of your journey and your adventure that they spoke to, as well as the forums, the websites. We really want to build that picture, that rich picture of how people are using social media, as well as what's kind of crap about it at the moment. I think you and I have got a bit to say about that, Michael, about how, on the contrary, it's not so much social media, it's perhaps anti-social media. Did you want to say a little bit more about that this morning?
Yeah, it almost seems designed to bring out the worst in us, the bit of us that wants to boast, and the bit of us that wants to promote ourselves, and the bit of us that wants to, have really loud opinions about other people's opinions. It's not really about getting together, discussing things, finding out what we have in common, what we can do together. It's, we don't have to agree with people all the time, because that gets really, really boring. But it'd be good that we could talk about stuff, disagree about stuff, and find out what the real stuff is that we agree on. And for me, that's what creates social. It's not. I mean, I've got my opinions and I'm voicing them now. You've given me access to this platform, and I like talking about my opinions, and they're great. And I know other people disagree with them.
Yeah, of course. But why do you think this has happened? Why did it go from quite a nice little warm and fuzzy place? I mean, I'm talking mainly about Facebook, warm and fuzzy Facebook, for those of us who remember it sort of 10 years ago, which, might come as a little bit of a surprise to people. Do you remember what it was like 10 years ago, when it was like just, all fine and dandy, and people were really literally posting pictures of cats and what they had for dinner? It seems like the old days of Facebook. What happened to make it a place that actually now people don't really want to be, but like they kind of have to be because of certain parts of their lives and their daily grind, as it were, rather than a pleasurable place to be?
Well, such a great question, and I have an opinion. Obviously, I don't actually know it's true, but I do have an opinion, and it just reminds me of the thing that you said earlier about the Swiss investors. Coming to Portugal. Is that a good thing? Well, and actually it's in the name, investor. The reason an investor will come to Portugal is they put aside all their human, fuzzy, sort of lovely concerns about life, and they're focusing on making some money, and they're coming to Portugal to make some money. Now, that in itself is not a bad thing, because actually, if bringing money to Portugal so that Portugal can spend it in the way it wants to is great, as long as Portugal realizes that that's why they're coming and structures things in a way that Portugal will get something from it. So, and that's sort of what's happened to Facebook, is it's been taken over by investors, and investors actually are there to maximize their returns, which they're doing very, very well. And so everything in Facebook is designed to maximize Facebook's returns. Having us disagree with each other is actually a really great way of maximizing Facebook's returns.
It's good for business, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have it as the modern equivalent of, I suppose, the Roman arena. We don't have lions and centurions and slaves fighting with each other. We just have people having it out in sort of bitter discussions about, for example, vaccinations, wearing masks or not wearing masks, etc.
Yeah.
A particular example.
And then our social media acts as material for our media, which then picks up on those centurion fights on Facebook or Twitter, and it then goes to the law courts, where we have another spectacle that we can entertain ourselves with, and it's all about people fighting with each other, and that's fine if that's what you want, if that's what you call social. Fantastic. I don't think it is.
And it seems that there isn't really an alternative. That's kind of where we're at as a culture as well, isn't it? You could say, is that people like that stuff, and it maybe don't even know that they like that stuff, and that is the preponderance of material available. And where can you go, if anywhere, to have a different kind of discourse that might be respectful, loving even, and less to do with the emotions and more to do with collaboration, more that brings people together, unity, rather than separation and division. I mean, presumably that's what OurNet's about. That's what you're working on. But what do you see as the mechanics of bringing that about to get us out of this habit that we've developed of the emotions first?
Well, it's about understanding what community really is, and what social really is. It's life isn't easy. I don't find life easy, and I'm guessing I've never come across anyone that finds life really easy and a breeze, except Donald Trump, who will tell you that. But it's it's life is quite hard. We know we need to survive, and we know that we need each other to survive. Fundamentally, most people, if we don't have other people around, actually tend to get lonely. And then there's things such as food and shelter, and all the other really essential things for survival. So, knowing that we need other people to survive, how is it that we can structure ourselves that we can live with other people, not necessarily that we like, although sometimes we do, but live with people that we don't necessarily like, but we can actually love enough to want to support them and have them support us. And for me, that is the things from it includes clapping at nurses in the UK. It includes food banks. It includes an awful lot of things. It includes a health service. There's a lot of basic things which I think as human beings we should be doing for each other. And also, some of us are much more competitive and much more, some of us are more innovative than others. Some are more competitive. So those things are important as well, because there are the people that like breaking new ground, but there are also people that love carrying on doing the same thing day out, feeling safe. So somehow in society we need to make all that possible. And what's happened is the world has got bigger and bigger and bigger. The organisations got bigger and bigger and bigger, with countries getting bigger and bigger, and nation states and EU, etc. Control is just disappearing away, and we're thinking, no one actually thinks about me. No one cares about me, because we're trying to organise ourselves on far too bigger scale. We need to start organising ourselves more locally, and we need people to run the country, etc. But they should be our servants, not our masters.
Get in. Nice way of putting it. I'll leave it like that this morning. It's almost sort of revolutionary talk to suggest that, isn't it? But that's absolutely right. Absolutely spot on.
Yeah, revolutionary. I feel a bit uncomfortable with that, because I don't want to be political, because I know that, because I'm a bit of a left winger, always have been. But that's fine. I don't know what it means anymore. But what I know is that I've met some really lovely conservatives and right wingers. Everyone has somewhere within them that little spark of love, divinity, whatever it is, and everyone's trying to make the world work in the best way they know how. But we just need to discuss with each other how we want to do it jointly, rather than as an individual enterprise.
Yes, well said, Mike. And that, excuse me. That's what's missing, isn't it? Is the focus on that spark of the divine, what unites us. We're really probably not focusing on that very much in the dominant culture we find ourselves in. We are focusing on the differences. And what do you know? When we focus on the differences, what happens? We end up at odds with each other and feeling quite alone and separated. A different world is possible. Let's have a look at a few comments. No sea mist, and yes, a lovely place. Foch de Relio. Going to look at San Martino de Porto as recommended later today. Yes, go to the Biocultural Bar just back from the beach, and give my love to those lovely folks, Anna and Ricardo, in that lovely cafe restaurant there. Report from San Martino de Porto tomorrow from Claire and Steve. Oh, and the continued adventure of Ferry Westphal selling his house is embodied in the comments that are too big to read out. From what I see on my screen here, so check that out. I like San Martino de Porto, especially when the grandkids are over, but I prefer Foz. Wayne Barker, yes, as John Denver once said, we're leaving on a jet plane, so it'll be hola, boa noite, todos. Yes, looking forward to saying good evening to us in Portuguese over here. Yes, Foz is lovely. Can't believe how big the beach is. Is that Foz de Relio or Figueira de Foz? However, safe journey being wished to you there from Owen. Which I hope you've seen. I am a village boy. And here we go. Here's more of the stuff. Yeah, because it's all very well you talking to each other in the comments. What we really want to know about is your experience of social media and your guesses for the future of it. Wayne says, I'm a village boy and have seen that community spirit slowly eroded over the years. Totally behind the views expressed here. So thanks, Wayne, for saying that. Another bit of a commentary about social media. There seems to be a total lack of quality on Facebook. Present company accepted, I hope, where we have reached a point where you don't know what is true and what is not. The fake news gremlins seem to have the free run with the ever more provocative and dramatic posts, which seem to divide. I think that means divide us more. Absolutely, Gary. So yeah, community spirit, Mike, and fake news and the manipulation, it would appear. What do you make of that?
Well, what is I think really interesting about Gary's comment is that about truth, what's true and what isn't. So the only problem with truth is that no one knows exactly what it is. It's, ultimately, it has to be an opinion, because what's true today is never true tomorrow. It's one thing science shows us, that science always has the answer to everything, but somehow 10 years time, science has completely changed. So, which implies that the science we got today actually isn't the real truth. It's an aspect of truth, possibly.
Shock horror.
Yeah, it's fine, because it's enough of a truth that it works for us at the moment. So what's really important, though, in my world, in the social world, is trust. Now, what's amazing about looking back at the UK, which I'm very grateful I'm not in at the moment, is the trust rating in Boris Johnson is actually incredibly low. People actually say he's better at running the economy than the Labour Party would be, but no one trusts him, which I find a really interesting sort of comparison. Why would you actually have anyone run an economy that you don't trust? But it's trust actually is a social event. It's something that we build up because we do what we say we'll do. So you start to trust me if I always do what I say I'll do. That's how I get trust from you. If I never do what I say I'll do, you never trust me. And so therefore, so what's happening is that on Facebook, we have no social triggers as to whether we can trust anyone, because actually they're people we don't know. We know we've been surrounded by a load of rubbish. We don't know what the rubbish is and what the truth is, etc., etc., etc. So, and that's where social comes in again, is because if we know the people that we mix with, to some degree, we will know which people we trust and which people we don't. And
I mean, it's also about intention as well, isn't it? What we set out to achieve, or what our expectations are. And I think we've grown to have such low expectations of the media and social media now, because you very rarely hear of people saying, "Oh, I had such a." I mean, this does happen, but it's not what's generally reported, is it? It's like, I had such a loving engagement or interaction with somebody. I made a new friend, and it's so delightful that we've got so much in common, and we're going to meet up because we're on the same page. It's more likely to be, I've had to block that idiot today, or can you believe it? Somebody came on my timeline and told me how it is about my life. That's what I hear. Well, I do in my house anyway. I don't know if that's how it is for other people, but it's a lot of that kind of downside and the dark side at the moment. And I think it's not just about expecting social media to sort that out for us. We have to be responsible for the experience we want as well, don't we?
Yeah. And it's interesting, the word responsibility, because actually there's a lot of talk about rights, but no talk about responsibility. So I think Jordan Peterson said, "Your rights are my responsibility. My rights are your responsibility." So we can, and how do we make people responsible? How do we make other people responsible? In my world, we have to start being responsible ourselves.
Nice. And Gary would appear to agree. I think we're talking integrity here. That's not a word you hear very often, is it? What does that mean? What's that? And from Belgium, locally, I agree. So don't mention always Trump. He is in his land and we are in Europe. That's a good point, Jeannie, actually. He is a great figure upon which you can project your opinions, and he is typically sort of polarizing figure at the moment, who attracts projections of all kinds. Not very many in the middle, it has to be said. They are never kind of beige, are they? The opinions people tend to have about Trump, they are polar and they are extreme often. But they also, in many ways, none of our business. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't affect me on my street what Donald Trump is up to. Although we've been brought up to believe that, haven't we? Because we were told that the president of America was the most powerful man in the world. But actually, really, is that true? Does it really have that much effect on my life? And that's another, to me, that's symptomatic and another indication of how out of touch we are with local life. And we believe ourselves to be connected to this great global village over which we have very little influence, and over really which, or over us, has very little influence as well. Or am I deluded in that?
Carl.
Say it if you want.
I think it sets the conversation that America, because the concentration of money. It's not just America. It's the financial and media systems actually set the conversation that we all follow. And the moment they start setting fearful conversations, then we start following that. So our conversations become fearful, and it's because my understanding is everything happens in conversations. That nothing happens on its own. People go and do stuff, but not many people go and do stuff without having a conversation with someone or even with themselves about what they're going to do. It's the way the human mind works. Is there's a projection of something for the future. Sometimes we join together with other people and things happen. So conversations actually create things happening, and the dominant conversations actually create our mood. They create the our fear. So if there's a recession coming, if everyone agrees there's a recession coming, people stop spending money. And actually, if you look at what a recession is, it's money stops being spent. So the act of saying there is a recession is actually the recession.
Indeed, that's fascinating. So we kind of bring about what we focus on.
Yeah.
So using that technology, if we focused on something different, or had different intentions, we might bring about a different reality. That's pretty cosmic for this time of the morning. I like that a lot. Jeannie says, I have made real friends on FB. I'd like to think I'm one of them, Jeannie. And I suppose I am presenting quite a caricature to make the point. But yeah, she says, I have made real friends on Facebook. So it is like, in life, positive and negative. Absolutely, Jeannie. And I guess, like Mike's saying there, what you focus on is what you're going to get as well. If you keep focusing on how crap it is, it's probably going to be pretty crap. But if you do think it can be a great place to make friends, that's probably what you'll experience as well. Although the context is important because the medium is a message, etc. This is great from Adam. I looked into beginning a gift economy. Was that in Portugal, Adam? Because I'd be very interested to hear more about it, the Buy Nothing project. But in the training info and subsequent discussion with an organizer, I found that in many of these communities, people get catty with each other and attack, etc. Of course, every community is its own. However, this was a real detractor in even considering establishing the group. I've no interest in censoring people. Thoughts on forming gift economies while minimizing these kinds of attacks? That is such a good question. And Mike is your man with that, I think. Go on, Mike.
Oh well, thank you. I hope I can live up to that press card. So the thing is, if we go back to villages, what happens in a little village? So just imagine that before money, there are about 150 people in the village, people growing stuff, sort of sharing stuff. Money hasn't been invented. People are sort of looking after each other, and we have built within us as human beings fantastic forms of social feedback mechanisms. So an example I use, especially here in Portugal, where everyone's got a grandmother, is that if you go and have tea with your grandmother, you behave in a totally different way than you do if you go down to a bar with friends. So if you go to a bar with friends, you'll be drinking, smoking, swearing, telling dirty stories, etc. Most Portuguese don't do that with their grandmother, because if they did, they'd be told to get lost and come back when they treat them out.
Yes.
Yeah. And vice versa, if they behave down the bar in the way they behaved with their grandmother, their friends would think they're weird. So that wouldn't work either. So we've got these amazing sort of social matching mechanisms, and but what the problem comes when you've got two sorts of community colliding, and if you're trying to set up a sharing economy, in an environment which isn't a sharing environment. Everyone has been trained in me first. It's all out there. It's my needs are more important than everyone else's needs. I've got to stitch other people up to get what I want. I've got to try and manipulate things. So people have been trained in one way, and then you're trying to introduce something completely different. And if it is possible, and it needs to be really, really conscious and open, or we start to train ourselves to be a bit more thoughtful. And that's part of what our net's about, is introducing these social feedback mechanisms which start to train people to be considerate about each other.
Yeah, I want to come back to that. But first, I have been reminded that me and Mrs. M fell in love through Facebook and got married and had 3 kids. You know, I have a lot to thank Facebook for. I don't mean to sound like I was, knocking it entirely. Facebook brings so many blessings to me, not least of which Mrs. M and my kids and my family and my life in Portugal. But the Good Morning Portugal live stream, this whole community is premised on Facebook. And I have my reservations or suggestions about how it could be improved as well. I think, and like you say, Mike, it's a conversation, isn't it? So thank you for pointing that out, Louisa, anyway. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The gift economy idea is running in Lisbon. So that's interesting. And I really would like to talk to you about that more. And I think it's fascinating what you say there, Mike, is yes, that's a new idea. Let's call it a new idea. And that's talking into the old idea, isn't it? Which you could arguably say is like struggling a little bit, could be improved, just like Facebook. But what is the mechanism for having people be open to ideas rather than attacking them, as Adam seems to be saying there? And I think, from what I know about Facebook, there is a mechanism for this, because you mentioned trust earlier on. Yeah. Adam needs to be seen as a trustable, trustworthy person with a good idea, rather than just the latest kind of, Johnny come lately with a new idea who thinks everybody else should pick up this idea. Life doesn't tend to work like that, does it? It does come from the trust conversation. It does come from being elevated in the community. And our net it wants, or is built into it, a method for building that trust, right? And credibility.
Yeah, because we need training. I mean, if you're taking the bar and the grandmother afternoon tea thing, if you were brought up in a bar and never had a grandmother, and then suddenly there was a long lost grandmother appeared, and you went for afternoon tea with her, you wouldn't know how to behave with your grandmother. Yes. So you behave to her as you would in a bar, and we can imagine that could cause
hilarious. That'd be hilarious, but not for the grandmother or for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because both need to start learning something about each other, and finding some way to make it work. And as a metaphor, I think that works really well. If you start, it's not enough having the right rules. It's not enough having the right intent. It's not enough having an inspiring person. It actually takes commitment on the part of everyone involved to start to do things differently, and that is the difficulty.
And the context, and a shift of context, right?
Yeah, and so going back to Facebook, I think Facebook has been amazing for the world. I think it's done something. It has brought awareness of the rest of the world in a way that we never had it before. I think it's incredible. Just because I think, but that doesn't mean that I have to say, well, everything Facebook does is perfect. I don't think it is. I'd like something better than Facebook. But what Facebook has done is it has trained us in certain ways of behaving, just as Twitter has trained us in certain ways of behaving. For us to start using other forms of social media, we're going to have to get trained, because we're going to have to get trained.
Or I suppose reconditioned, I suppose, would be another way of looking at that, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't there's that old sort of cliche, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got, which is evidently true on Twitter, seems to be true with Facebook. And in a different kind of culture, where there might be a more of an elder view, a less of an emotional view, that people might quite calmly say, we're not actually very keen on the way this is going. What can be done to help? Like you raising a child, isn't it? It's like, there's something a little bit concerning about what's going on at the moment in a child's behavior, perhaps. How can we support and encourage the sort of behavior we'd love to see that might serve that child better. And that is, again, it's that same mix of things, isn't it? It's a change of input, it's a change of environment, it's a change of context, and a change of intention. Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary, thanks for your contributions to this conversation, Gary. I think we have overdone the sense of entitlement. This has led us to a world where it's focused on me instead of what about us together. Your view, Michael?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some people have iPhones. I think we have an I-centric world. I think we need to get to a we-centric world.
Which always makes me giggle a little bit.
Yeah, I know. We phone doesn't work, does it?
No, but there is a British bank or corporate, the Co-op, I think, are talking about we do we or something like that is their new strapline. We do we. We all do we, but yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable. That going back to Adam and the gift economy project, I actually discussed that kind of priming with the organizer. She said she had to be super strict in order to facilitate proper behavior within the group, top down to start, in order to allow the group to rise. I can see some sense in that as well. Yeah. A work in progress by the sound of it. This is about education, Michael, in real life and on social media. Say more, Jeannie, but I think we get what you're saying there.
Yeah, totally. It seems odd, isn't it, that we have to be educated to relate to each other, but equally we've been educated to not relate to each other. We've been educated to just look out after ourselves and fight for ourselves.
Indeed. Okay, so there is the theoretical, the sort of blue sky aspect, us chewing the fat about how social media could be. You have a very tangible and practical project on your hands there, with which you need some help, I think, because we did talk before, didn't we, about this sort of David and Goliath metaphor about Facebook is well and truly up and running. It is an incredible piece of technology. At the very least, it's an incredible technological achievement, and it does so much. It offers so much. A newcomer comes into the scene, David, and what chance do they have in many ways? What do you need, Mike? What? Because this is going to take, like we're saying here, this is going to take a community effort. This isn't going to be one man's vision alone, is it? Making this happen. This requires all of us to be involved if we like the sound of this. What do you need at the moment with Ownet?
Oh God. Moral support, people using the site. It's just about to be properly live, I think. There's been all sorts of bugs on it. Feedback, practical support, money.
So those Swiss investors might be quite useful then.
Yeah, investors. Yeah, absolutely. And basically people who think that we've got. And when I say investors, and people are prepared to put something into it, because it shouldn't all be down to me. I mean, I came up with the concept, and that was amazing, but it can't all be down to me because it's too big a thing. But people who are prepared to invest their time, their expertise, their marketing skills, their technical skills, their money, their just organizational skills, social skills.
Well, there you go. That's where to find it. It is online at the moment, ownet.news. And for all of the above then, Mike, with your request there for how people might participate, get involved, it's a community site. It will be a community effort. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
For me, my email is michael@ownet.co. The website itself is, as shown on the screen, www.ownet.news. I'm available through my email address particularly. Yeah.
Okay, michael@ownet.co. I've put that on the screen there. That's a great idea, Owen, actually. I'll leave your email up at the end there, but is there an Ownet invitation link? I guess the best way to do that at the moment is just to go and sign up at ownet.news, but that's a pretty good idea, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Yes. I mean, there's so much that needs doing to it. It's still a concept. It's and feedback. Actually, that's the other thing we need is feedback to let us know if we're on the right track.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Michael. Really appreciate you being here, talking about ARNet, talking more generally about social media and the world. A completely random question just to finish here from Asaf. Good morning, everyone. I was wondering if someone has an experience with importing to Portugal. I'm guessing this is goods, stuff, bringing it into the country. We're developing a product abroad, and we're looking for help. So if you can help Asaf there with that, please do. That's what it's all about here. We're very much a community. And I'm thinking, does Good Morning Portugal need a group as well as a page? And I'm reluctant. I'm hesitating. I want an ARNet group. I'm seeing the limitations of a Facebook group, but really, what I need is what. And this is the question I was asking at the beginning. It's like, what do people want and expect from that experience? Because we can go with what's available, can't we? And then the medium becomes the message, and you're confined by what you already know and what's existing. But that would be really helpful to me from a Good Morning Portugal point of view is, how can we express ourselves on social media? So it's not just the live stream. How do we broaden our sense of community as expats and explorers, diggers and dreamers, who want to come to Portugal, who are already in Portugal? What will be the ideal social media experience? I'm sure that will be helpful to both me and to Michael in terms of that requirement and that need. So thanks again. You will be being emailed, Michael, by there's a promise there from Owen.
Fantastic.
Thanks again. I look forward to. Do you want to say goodbye in Portuguese?
Tchau, tchau.
I'm going to go with a simple teja myself. Muito obrigado. Tchau, até logo. And thanks to everyone who's contributed today. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.